Hi, I'm Robin Blumenthal, Senior Editor at Barrons Magazine, and joining us today is Nouriel Roubini, the Chairman of RGE Monitor and a Professor of Economics at NYU. Well, you've certainly been a very accurate prophet of doom. All of the predictions that you made several years ago with regard to Fannie and Freddie, the collapse of the housing sector, have basically come to pass. So where are we right now in the economic difficulties?
If I had to use a baseball metaphor, I would say we're still in the second inning of a very long and protracted game in which we're going to have a pretty severe, long and protracted recession. For a while after Bear Stearns, people said the worst is behind us. My argument was we're in the eye of the storm now. The headwinds are still ahead of us. So the severity of the financial crisis is going to be worse ahead of us.
Not great news. What about what the Fed has been doing? Does it make you more concerned that they're giving banks more leeway?
Certainly the Fed had to cut the Fed funds rates and introduce these new liquidity facilities. Otherwise, we would have had literally a meltdown of the financial system. The trouble is that the Fed is running out of bullets.
Are we going to have to raise taxes in order to basically save the financial system?
Initially, we'll have to increase the public debt, and that's how we're going to finance it. Eventually, we have to raise taxes to finance it. Those who are financing us today are foreigners. 100% of all the increase in holdings of U.S. treasuries for the last 8 years has been done by non-residents. Resident U.S. citizens have not increased their holdings of treasury. So we are essentially relying on the kindness of strangers. In the 80s, when we had these twin deficits, fiscal and current account, those who were financing us were our friends and allies, Europe, Germany, and Japan. This time around, those who are financing us are our strategic rivals, countries like China, like Russia, like the Gulf states, and so on. So it's a very difficult situation which we have to rely on the financing of powers that are emerging that are not necessarily our friends. Would they pull out the plug on the U.S. financing? It's a possibility. It's a risk that we have to think about.
Well, when you put that together with the energy situation, where does this leave the U.S.? Are we basically a world power that's in decline, sort of akin to what the British Empire was at the beginning of the last century?
Yeah, the U.S. looks like right now the beginning of the decline of the British empires. Usually great empires have two characteristics. They're net creditors and they are net lenders. Today, U.S. is the net borrower because it's running an $800 billion current account deficit every year. So that means that the U.S. foreign liabilities are increasing by about $800 billion, and the U.S. foreign debt is already about $2.5 trillion. It's the biggest debtor in the world, and we have to borrow from abroad, either by accumulating debt or alternatively selling our gems, our assets to foreigners. Our banks, our financial institutions, our companies, our land, our buildings. That's what's happening. When you spend more than your income, either you borrow or you run down your assets. Either way, you're causing trouble for yourself down the line.
Mm-hmm. What's our country going to look like?
It's going to be a difficult period. Whoever is going to be the next president, the economic and financial challenges are going to be massive. The fiscal deficit, the fiscal cost of cleaning up this mess, having a housing sector that has a severe crisis, having had the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. We'll need to change our economic policy. We have to go through a period probably of slow growth. That's the risk. The relative power of the U.S. economically, financially, geopolitically, the role of the dollar as a reserve currency is going to be reduced. There are other emerging powers, China, India, Europe, and the U.S. will have to realize that that unipolar moment in which there was one superpower, the U.S., is gone in part because other countries are emerging, but in part also because we made massive economic and political mistakes, and therefore our relative economic, financial, and military and other power has been reduced, and we've caused a lot of damage through our policy. So there'll be a period of time whoever is the president, he will have to start doing the policy, the right ones.
Thank you so much, Professor Roubini, Chairman of RGE Economic Monitor. I'm Robin Blumenthal from Barrons Magazine. Thank you.